Okay, do we have somebody in the back room taping us
Yes.
today? Okay, we've confirmed. Okay, it is 7 PM on February the 24th. What's that? Nothing. February 24th, Town Council meeting, and we are looking for a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Jack Perry. Jennifer Klock.
Here.
Michael Del Santo.
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo. William Dietzick.
Here.
James Morelli.
Here.
Tony Morrison.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here, we have a quorum of 7, and we did hear that Councilwoman DiPaolo and Councilman Perry are not going to make it today. So hopefully their travels are safe. Can we please all stand for the prayer and a flag salute?
Heavenly Father, open our eyes this evening to the truth and reality of every situation that we encounter. Give us solutions that are the best for our community now and in the future. Keep your hand upon Southington and continue to make her great. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are looking for a motion for the approval of our revised minutes of the Town Council meeting February 10th, 2025. And the revision to the minutes was the addition of the OR&L contract? OR&L contract that we spoke about at the last meeting, and we included after the minutes were posted, so that contract is now in our revised minutes. So we're looking for a motion for the revised minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? No discussion on the revised minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously 7-0. Before we make a motion on executive session, for those who weren't here, we are going to move into an executive session once we have the vote. So we will take a vote to move into executive session. Those who are on the dais, with the exception of the town clerk, will move into the back room where we're going to have an executive session regarding pending litigation. And once we're done, we'll come out. I anticipate it could be anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes is my guess. We will then take the meeting up, the regular meeting after that, okay? So with that, we're going to move on to number 3, executive session, pending litigation.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would you like to do the minutes first?
We just did that.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. So item
Make a
3,
motion, Mr. Chair, to adjourn into executive session, barring the press and the public, but including the town attorney
and the town manager.
and the town manager.
And also, this is regarding pending litigation.
Regarding pending litigation. Also Lydia Nichols and Tom Gerard. Attorney Nichols and Attorney Gerard will be calling in as well.
Attorney Nichols is here, and Attorney Gerard will call in. Okay,
Second.
we have a second. Any discussion on the executive session? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the time is 7:04, and we will head into an executive session now and be out shortly. Okay, it is 7:38 and we are back in regular session. We're going to move on to item number 4, information technology presentation by the IT director, Mitchell Gugliotti. And while you're getting the slides queued up, do we have to change the AV thing to turn it back on again?
That's the IT guy.
And while you're doing that, Mitch, I'll just cue it up a little bit. We might need to wait for the projector to restart. If you can, when you're giving your presentation, Mitch, Mitch has given us a little bit of a, which we can put this information into the meeting minutes, Alex, right? We have an advanced presentation that Mitch is going to show. There's a lot of technical information in here. I would say only Mr. Santago and various people who are familiar with the IT world can relate to. But what I've asked Mitch to do is, to the greatest extent possible, Mitch, if you can, it's okay, go ahead. If you can, I'll wait for you to come back. Yeah, because it got turned off, it might need 5 or 10 minutes to turn back on. There we go. No worries. Think it's gonna come on again?
Yeah, you gotta shake it on.
Well, the email that we're using is like completely like. Oh, I know. I know, it's ridiculous.
There you go.
A good commercial for IT.
There you go. Why don't you start, and then in 5 minutes, we'll try it again after it has a chance to reset. So if you can, Mitch, what we'd like you to do is go through the slides and try to, take some of the technical aspects of this after you give your bio. Take some of the technical aspects of this and put them into terms that the council will understand, as well as, what your recommendations are going forward, because we know that we also have the budget that you and the town manager have put forward. So helping us understand where some of those requests are coming from here would be good as well.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. So for those of you who know me and those of you who don't, my name is Mitchell Gugliotti. I'm the Director of Technology and GIS for the town. I graduated from UConn in 2015. I almost finished a master's degree at CCSU in 2016. I have 27 out of 30 credits completed. I never defended my thesis. My thesis was a case study of the town of Southington, creating 3D mapping, focusing on underground utilities. After that, I came and worked for the town for a few years. From 2015 to 2019, I worked in the engineering department, where I did a ton of GIS work, a little bit of engineering work as well. Mainly just created, updated, and maintained a bunch of GIS data that a lot of us still use today. If anyone's used the public GIS site that's put on by the town, a lot of data in there I created. After leaving the town, I headed to the Department of Transportation for the state of Connecticut, where I created their GIS system from the ground up. When I first arrived there was no GIS whatsoever. I skipped around from unit to unit until we arrived at the Enterprise GIS unit. Spent a year or two building GIS infrastructure there. Towards the end, at the start, we started with 4 users, and before I left, I believe it was somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 users in the system. About 2 years into that project, I really ducked out of the GIS game and went more into the IT realm, where I was a database administrator, server architect, Azure architect, really focusing on the core infrastructure that was at DOT. After really getting into the IT world, some functions that I performed was cloud networking, cybersecurity, server administration, Azure administration, which is a lot of the cloud stuff and servers, numerous types of development, .NET, C#, Python, all programming languages to write web applications and do other things. SQL Server administration, all your databases where all your data lives, the core of really a lot of your intelligence. AI engineering, data automation, data engineering, the list really goes on. But my landmark project at DOT before I left was developing a custom AI chatbot that was connected to SQL databases and also documents, so the end user could query this data and documents and extract intelligible answers from the AI. We used our executive policies. There's about 30 to 60 in there, and you could ask any question that resided in these documents. It would comb through the text and provide you an answer. I've received an award in 2022 from Esri, the creators of GIS. I was flown out to California where I accepted the award in person. It's called a SAG Award, Special Achievement in GIS, and we won it for our GIS infrastructure that we created at the DOT. I'm also a member of Gamma Theta Epsilon, which is an International Geographical Honor Society. I was inducted in 2018. So, moving on to the town of Southington. Tonight we're going to cover a lot of the functional areas of IT. For those of you who don't know, we're going to start with desktop help desk, which is really our front lines. Networking, our core backbone, which lets other PCs talk to one another, gets us out into the internet, allows us to do a lot of the things that we want to do, such as file sharing, accessing applications. Server, the machines that actually host the applications and provide that backbone to get the different things around. Security, keeping everybody's data and information safe. Internet and phone, so we're going to go a little bit outside of the building. We're going to talk about our phones that are on everybody's desks, the internet that's coming into the building, and we're going to wrap up with mobile, which is cell phones. So starting with help desk and desktop, I wasn't able to gather metrics from the PD, but just on the town side, so all the other buildings, not including Board of Ed, we have 122 desktop computers that have reported in so far. Half are Windows 10, which is the old version of Windows. The other half are Windows 11. 9 of them have active warranties, which indicates they've been purchased within the past 3 years. 77 have been purchased longer than 3 years ago. I believe that's about 63% of our entire inventory is more than 3 years old. I couldn't put an exact date on it because I didn't have time to run all the serial numbers, but I was able to check out the warranties, and the warranties are 3 years. So, and these are no questions asked warranties. Computer breaks, the manufacturer swaps it out, we get a new one. And 23 of them turn 3 years old in about 3 weeks. We run mostly HP computers. There are other brands that are around. And our monitors are extremely old. And they're in such high demand that people are starting to bring their own personal monitors at home to use here at work. Our Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Right now we're running the 2019 version. This is end of life. 10/14/2025. That means it will no longer receive important updates from the manufacturer. This includes security, new features, anything like that. creating possible security risks in our architecture and network. Help desk, we get an average of 6 to 8 tickets a day. These range from, hey, I forgot my password, all the way up to, hey, my computer won't turn on, or something catastrophic has happened. Lately, it's been a little bit higher than that due to some of the new technology we've been implementing, but I do foresee that kind of going down in the future. The future state of desktop and help desk. All PCs really need to be on Windows 11. As Windows 10 kind of becomes end of life, they're going to stop receiving those important security updates as well, which can cause holes in our security infrastructure, putting us at risk. We should move to a more mobile deployment and have hot swap spares available. So that way, on catastrophic failures, we can minimize downtime to the end user by just swapping out their PC very quickly while we can troubleshoot the issue much further in the IT department. Because our IT department is very small, we really need to lean on automation for deployment, create self-paced training programs for the end users, so that way they can still get the education they need, yet still take some of the burden off the IT department. We need to replace Microsoft Office, all of our perpetual license, with Office 365. In the future, everything is going this way. They're going to stop making these individual versions of Microsoft Office, kind of forcing us to go this way eventually. But there are good news with that. We get enhanced security. We're licensing the user and no longer the machine. So that way, if a machine breaks, all the user has to do is sign in on the new machine, their license comes with it. We don't have to worry about buying 2 licenses for each machine, or what happens if the machine breaks, we just burned a license. More management behind some of these devices for automated software deployment and device management in case something does get lost. And also being able to securely access email and documents from anywhere with an internet connection, not only inside the building. Networking, which is really our core, that lets everything talk to one another. Our switches have an average of 6.85 years out of 10-year lifespan. A lot of stuff is going to be end of life in the next couple years, which means no more updates, no more security patches. It's time to replace a lot of this stuff. The slides go on, routers, end of life, there's 9 of them, 20 in 2028. Firewalls, which keep the bad guys out and let all of our guys in. These are going to be out of warranty very soon. We have 10 of them. Wi-Fi access points, so that way everybody can use Wi-Fi inside the building. Some of these are failing, becoming past their useful life. And then also resiliency, eliminating single points of failure in our network, so that way if a machine does experience a catastrophic failure, we're not losing entire buildings that could be an EMS or the municipal center during a town council meeting. So the future state of networking is really just getting on a consistent replacement plan. This way, it's a constant investment every year, kind of clearing up some of the technological debt we have incurred over the past. And technological debt is a term in the industry where you've been kind of kicking the can down the road so much, incurring this debt to where everything has turned into more or less a mess. Where previously, any changes that you may have done may have taken 15 minutes. Now, because we've incurred all this technological debt, things are more complex than they really need to be. These 15-minute changes now double, triple, quadruple, sometimes even take half a day. And then also reducing single points of failure. This way, like I said, if a machine does have a catastrophic failure, people are still able to do their job. So servers, getting really technical in here, but the gist of it is that we have an aging server infrastructure that we need to make some investments behind. A lot of these servers are getting older. They're not end of life now, so we do have some time. which is a great time to have this conversation. We could be ahead of the game, make small investments this year, next year, and really get back on track. And then we can continue with our investment program, so that way there are no surprises going on. We have multiple SQL servers, which are database servers. None currently really talk to each other. They all have their own job. So putting these together and clustering them and giving one a backup to one another, so that way if one goes down, we can continue on. We can also do patches and updates and maintenance during the day without causing any downtime to the users. We have a few old machines as well. There's an IBM AS400. I'm sure a lot of you don't know what that is. It's an IBM machine that was, I believe it was released to market in 1988. To say the least, it's past its useful life. It's time that it really needs to get disconnected from the network, because it does cause a really big security holes. And of course, our email, something that we all use every day. It's very important to us. This is end of life, end of support, October 2025 this year, kind of forcing our hand more to the O365 game. So the future state of servers is really what I said, clustering SQL servers where we can. This allows us to do maintenance and other tasks throughout the day, minimizing downtime to the users, updating operating systems, doing server migrations, getting all these applications over to more not only stable environments, but newer environments that will last for many more years and receive these important updates. We have a few security holes in the servers, running local service accounts instead of managed service accounts. It's super nerdy, but pretty much you need an account to run an application. And it can't be somebody's, so we create one for it. And what this does is if the account ever gets compromised, it's localized to that one machine or to that one application, minimizing risk to the rest of the organization. Much like anything else, a hardware investment program. We need to get our desktop, server, and networks all on a consistent investment program. It's much like a credit card. If you only make the minimum payment, you're always going to be behind the 8 ball. You're never going to catch up. We need to make these investments in order to get ahead of things, so that way there are no surprises to anybody in the future. Security. So we have aging desktops. We've already covered that. We have camera systems in every building. Some are actually banned. A few years ago, I believe it was the last Trump administration, went through and set forth a ban for a lot of NVR security systems, mainly in particular Hikvision. Hikvision is owned by a Chinese state-owned company. I mean, that being said, it's a massive security risk that we really need to get rid of. So the future state is going to be replacing these camera systems, getting them on a more stable system, something that isn't necessarily American-made, but is stable and plays nice with the rest of our systems and doesn't cause massive security holes. Disconnecting some of these old servers like the IBM AS400 and making sure that people don't use personal devices to access critical infrastructure throughout the town. So now moving a little bit outside of buildings to the internet and phone. A lot of our buildings still have cable modems. Our download speeds at some of these remote sites are 50 megabytes a second, which if I had to guess, I'm sure a lot of your houses have a stronger internet connection than some of our buildings. We have 463 phone numbers that are available over 3 carriers, all running on copper phone lines. Back in the day, copper phone lines used to be the most reliable, but now, since fiber has come along, we really need to run fiber to a lot of these buildings, boosting their internet connectivity. We're seeing things like long startup times for desktops because they have to connect back to some of our main servers at Town Hall. We're seeing phone calls, external phone calls drop because our internet connection isn't strong enough. problems backing up machines because we can't transfer the data fast enough overnight. With the phones, I'm going through and assessing every single phone number, and I want to cut down on the number that we're paying for. Also, possibly moving to a cloud-based phone system, taking wires out of the equation completely. This way, if a building does lose power, or somebody who's very reliant on their phone systems, such as, the fire department or the police department, they could lose power almost and still be able to function and receive phone calls. Also, integrating better solutions to increase and harden security to get these remote sites to be able to talk back to one another without having to run wires on poles like infrastructure. I missed the pause. Also, implementing cellular backups for our EMS buildings. I'm sure you guys remember, I believe it was 5 or 10 years ago, a dump truck went down Lazy Lane and took down, had his dump body up and took down all the wires and poles. The police department was down for days. A simple solution is implementing a cellular backup. So if that ever happens again, they could run on cellular networks to keep themselves up and running and still able to do their job and keep us safe. Moving to mobile. So right now, a lot of town cell phones are not managed by a mobile device manager. This means that we can't secure them remotely. We can't push applications. We can't update them in a timely manner. We have 2 different carriers, so everything's kind of split, making us really pivot and figure out who we have to call with a problem before we can even diagnose and start troubleshooting the problem. And everybody's on a different phone plan, making it extremely hard to manage. In the future, I'd like to institute an MDM, which is a mobile device manager. It provides us the ability to remotely manage devices, pushing updates, security updates, secure applications, and also remotely managing and wiping the device if it does get lost. We could also back it up. That way, if somebody drops their device in a puddle or in a river, we can replace their device very quickly, minimizing downtime to them, and downloading all their stuff, making sure that they lost minimal amounts of data. The last few slides are GIS. So currently, GIS is being hosted by a vendor for our external viewer. It's internally cloud hosted for our internal GIS. We have 3 to 4 applications for viewing and editing data, and we need more licenses. And we have a ton of data as well. The future state of GIS is bringing a lot of this hosting in-house. Currently, we're paying $13,000 for the vendor to host it, on top of $50,000 just to have them update our data for us when we're already updating it ourselves. Bringing both those things in-house already saves us $63,000 right off the rip. A small increase in licensing helps us sustain that investment and continue to save money by building more internal and external applications that are public-facing and also internal-facing to boost productivity across the town in all departments. Moving to ArcGIS Enterprise, which is what I'm talking about, is our self-hosted infrastructure. And what that provides us is unlimited viewer memberships. Everybody in the town internally can have a license to our GIS system to use these internal applications to increase their efficiency. Also, external applications. We could build a multitude of external applications to solve all sorts of problems, such as work order management to the highway department, report a problem across town, and even some basic data tracking tools that can help people better understand all of our infrastructure and assets that are out on the roadway. So this part really isn't in your slides. This was left off. There are a few more things, right? There's the website. which is crumbling, old, hard to navigate, doesn't really help people get a lot of information. If anything, it causes more confusion than anything else. So redesigning that from the ground up, integrating all sorts of different things that we could possibly think of, better notification systems, better access to data, better access to FOIA, better access to pretty much everything that the citizen should already have access to. Few other things that don't come to mind off the top of my head. I had them before, I must have lost them. But there's a lot of work to be done nonetheless.
And don't forget, Mitch, one of the things that came up is also the ability to record meetings. I think that's kind
Oh.
of come late in the day. We've talked about that at a couple of the meetings. An easy way to record meetings. So as we progress down some of these things, I know Office 365 is going to be a big help. Teams, the ability to use AI to take meeting minutes. I know our Board of Education colleagues are using Firefly to take notes and things. So I think that there's opportunities to even smooth that process for us. Any council members have questions?
Mr. Chair, not a question, but Mitch, I know you and I spoke about the website, and I appreciate you working on that. That should be a priority, because you're right, it is very difficult to navigate, especially with the phone. And I know it's a little easier on a desktop or a laptop, but on the phone, which I think the majority of the people are using these days. And I love the idea of a notification system. You could sign up for notifications for important things that happen, like the dump or the transfer station is going to be closed because of a storm. And if folks sign up for notifications, they can get a notification saying, hey, the Southington Transfer Station is closed this Saturday due to, so good stuff.
Great.
Really interesting. I appreciate that. And I'm very nervous because I have HIC cameras at my house. It's watching me in the shower.
Councilman
Sorry for
Palmieri.
them.
Councilman Palmieri.
Just to expand on what Mike was saying, with our website, there's different results when you search on a mobile device versus searching on a
really?
computer. So I don't know if you're aware of that.
I
but-
was not, no,
Yeah, so
thank
we
you.
can do a search on a actual computer, and you'll get one result on our town website, and then you go to your mobile phone and you get different. And we've looked for different circumstances up here. So that's probably something you want to look into, and why we're not getting the same results no matter which modality you're using to search the website.
Definitely, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
the one thing I do ask with the website is just a little patience. We're talking about a complete redesign of the website from the ground up, and there's a ton of stuff in there. I did find some documentation, and I don't know if it's true or not. I wasn't able to verify it, but I suspect there's somewhere around 1,500 documents on that website, and you'd never know it because you'd never be able to find any of them, all of them.
I wanted to take a minute and thank the Technology Subcommittee. There are some members here, led by Councilwoman Clock. I know that there's been some initial touch points with the Technology Subcommittee and some communications about some of the priorities that came out of the Technology Subcommittee prior to you coming on board. Maybe re-looking at those and updating those, and we'll have some communications about. I know some of the Technology Subcommittee may be even watching online, so we'll have some communications about the Technology Subcommittee in the future, and how that plays into what you're doing. I know you've mentioned a lot of things also, Mitch, that you've done in your initial assessment here. We really appreciate that. I also know that you've already begun to work on many of these things as well. So you've already started the path. These things are things that are in process. They're not all just sitting there waiting for the future. So we appreciate that you're already beginning the journey and helping us to make improvements. I do want to ask the town manager, one thing that we'd like to look at is, as we start to look at the budget, maybe you can give us at our next meeting some of the requests that are coming as a result of the assessment from the Technology Subcommittee and the new director, Mitch here. Can you give us an idea if there's opportunities to purchase any of the one-time costs this year that we might use budget reallocation in the future, so that we can also consider how that might impact our budget for next year? We don't need to go into the details today, but that would be an interesting view, because I know, we're asking for a little bit more next year. Some of that may be one-time cost, and some of that we might be able to prepone and spend a little bit this year on. Jen, did you want to say a few things?
Yes, sorry, can I borrow those
Oh,
things.
yeah.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you. You've done a lot of work in a very small amount of time. And I do want to point out that, a lot of times when people hear, IT items, they're not that, they might not be that familiar, without a background and say, oh, well, gee, those things are nice, but we don't really need that. I want to say like 80% of what you, or more of what you've put here these are needs. Like, we need these to operate. Having equipment that is out of warranty is completely unacceptable. Those are needs. So I want to thank you for identifying the core needs of where the money should be focused. And I also think that there's opportunities to make investments that will save, you've pointed out cost savings already,
Yep.
and I think that's going to only continue. And I also think that another objective would be, as we move through, to come up with somewhat of an improvement plan. So over the years, like as you would with the hardware, just identifying, okay, here's where we can maximize funds here, because that's when, we need to update this or that, and I have no doubt that you will do that. So.
I completely agree. I'm already working on one 3-5-year strategic plan. The reason why I'm presenting this and not that tonight is because I'm still working on it. There's a lot that goes into it. So I haven't yet finished. I do apologize for that.
It's only been, 3 months?
Not even. Yeah, not even 6
Yeah.
weeks.
But thank you, perfect.
Other comments or questions from council members?
Yeah,
Tony?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, yeah, thanks, Mitch, appreciate it. Yeah, I'd just like to say the real benefit for us will be what runs on this infrastructure once it's all in place. I mean, that's where the real savings for the town are, both in efficiencies, the way we work, the way we can share data, the way we can create this budget without paper in the future. There's a whole lot of stuff. You consider this, for people back home, this is the highway, and it's really the real value of it is what runs on that highway, and that's really what we need to get to. But the fact that our roads are, not in a good state needs to be cured first, and I thank you for that.
I also wanted to mention that Mitch has also touched base with the Board of Education as well, so that we can harmonize, because there is a technology team there supporting the Board of Education side of the business, and so we think that there's a lot of opportunity to combine forces a little bit, get the same systems so that we're all beating to the same drum, and it will also allow us to share knowledge and share experiences and help each other as well. So,
Definitely.
thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, Mr. Town Manager, is it okay? We move on? Thank you. Nice job. We
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
all.
Okay, moving on to item 5, councilperson communications. Chris?
Just one quick one. I had the pleasure with Paul of attending the Southington YMCA 96th Annual Meeting and Awards Recognition Dinner, which was last week. Just a couple shout outs to members of our community that were recognized there. Our Youth Leadership Award went to Katie Kavanaugh and Luke Wolf. The Youth Development Award was the Early Childhood Collaboration of Southington. Healthy Living was to Southington Library Board. Again, I see a member out in the audience. And our Social Responsibility Award went to Leading Ladies. And then, of course, the highlight of the night was the YMCA Person of the Year, which, through the chair, a proclamation was presented to her, to Melissa Sheffy on behalf of the entire town council. So shout out to all the award recipients that evening, and just a huge shout out to the Southington YMCA for all the contributions they make in our community as well.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? Nobody? Okay, I just had, on top of the YMCA Person of the Year, Melissa Sheffy. Congratulations again to Melissa. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. I think from the council, Jim and I were at the Polar Plunge also this Saturday with Todd Chaplinsky and also Tom Lombardi. And we had a really We had a really good time. It was pretty warm, actually. Probably the warmest polar plunge that I can recall in history. The YMCA raised roughly $100,000, which was really nice. So looking forward to next year already and seeing how they go. The ice was 18 inches deep. It was unbelievable. And a special shout out to Dominique Pelletier and the Pelletier family, recognizing Trooper Aaron Pelletier. They were the feature team to jump in the polar plunge, so it was nice to see a strong showing from that group this year. It was really nice. Okay, if there's no other councilperson communications, we will move on to item 6, report of special committees.
Okay.
We'll move on. Item A, apple harvest. Chris.
There you go. All right, so to begin, I'm passing out the final 2024 Apple Harvest Festival budget, and I'd ask the clerk if she can include this in the minutes. That way there, all residents that are watching and here tonight can have access to that as well, so that will be part of our memorialized minutes for this evening. So I'll give everyone a minute to get that. I apologize for the delay. As the council all knows, we had a changeover with our coordinator for the Apple Harvest Festival, and we also had significant change in our finance department for the town. So we just wanted to make sure that everything was proper before presenting it to you. So on the first side, you can see the 2024 Apple Harvest Festival final budget. The top lists all the revenues broken down by each area. And then at the bottom are all our expenses, again, denoting in each line item within the festival budget overall. At the end of the day, we made a profit of $14,338.16. We've been trying to give back to our community. We know the part of the festival is we want it to be self-sustaining, which it has been, and we also want to try to contribute back to our community. So this year, we decided to give back $4,000 to the United Way. We did give them a significant amount more than the other two organizations because they actually volunteered and ran one of our beverage booths for the duration of the festival. So all 6 afternoons, evenings that the festival was open, the United Way was there manning one of the booths. So we made a donation of $4,000 to them. We, of course, wanted to support our own community services, knowing the need is greater. So we gave $2,000 back to community services, and then we gave $2,000 to Bread for Life this year. After all is said and done, when we take the $8,000 that we donated back into the community, we had a profit of $6,338.16. I also want to point out this year was actually a picture-perfect perfection year as far as weather, if you all remember. Can't remember a time where we haven't had better weather than what we had this past fall. So just keep that in mind as well. Now, if you flip that report over, because of our mission to make sure we are self-sustaining, we do have a reserve balance that is specific for the Apple Harvest Festival. The perfect example of this was in the year 2020 when we actually didn't have an Apple Harvest Festival. Even that year, there were some expenses that were already put forth. So that year, we took $27,000 and change out of the reserve to pay for the festival. Again, that way there it did not go into the general operating budget for residents. With the money that we're adding this year, it brings our balance to $159,773. Some of what we've also done with those monies in the past is, for example, the Apple Harvest 50th anniversary, we spent a little bit money to do some special things for the 50th that we wouldn't normally do on a year-to-year basis, so we took money out of reserve for that. And we've done festival upgrades, for example, upgrading the electrical system on the town green that not only benefits the festival, but benefits many other events like Music on the Green, the Farmers Market, other events in town as well. So we're trying to use that reserve responsibly for functions like that as well. So again, that'll be included in the minutes so that residents will have access to both this year's financials as well as our historical balance. Any questions about the budget, first of all? Pretty straightforward. All right, and then we also had a meeting on Wednesday, February 12th.
I'm sorry, Chris, I
Yes.
did have one. I thought you were going to maybe to go on the backside. One question, you're carrying over a balance of almost 160,000 in the fund. Have you thought about maybe, it doesn't seem like you're going to use any, the worst year that you've had, you took out $30,000. So did you ever consider investing maybe 100,000 of that right now and getting a return on it?
Actually, it's no reason we can't do that.
Just
Yeah.
something to consider. I mean, that'll leave you with 60,000 still of liquid assets, but if you put it in a safe investment, you could get yourself 4 or 5% return,
Yeah, that's a great,
Yep.
I'll bring that back.
maybe more. Yep.
Absolutely. Bring that back to the committee. We've also, and I know you and I have discussed it too, we also offer scholarships to graduating seniors at the high school that contribute to the festival as well. So we are trying to give back to the community, and hopefully our nonprofits benefit from this as well by financial gain during the course of the festival. And then they spend that throughout the year. So now moving on, we had a meeting on Wednesday, February 12th. It was, as we all know, on the council level at least, that we have Melissa Kokoza, who is our new festival coordinator. She has been our sponsor coordinator and was our previous festival coordinator prior to Mr. LaPre. So she is back with us as the festival coordinator and sponsor coordinator. And we're very fortunate also to have Lara Nichols back as our assistant festival coordinator. So that we had our first meeting last week with Melissa as our festival coordinator. Very pleased to say we're very fortunate with such a great community. We approved already our carnival vendor, our tent vendor, our porta potty vendor, our grounds cleanup vendor, and our electrical vendor. The reason we were able to approve those so quickly is because all of them agreed to maintain the exact price as what they did for the 2024 festival. So therefore, we didn't have to go out to bid for them because they are not looking to increase whatsoever in any of their services offered. So again, that's a benefit to us. We also just had a general overview from the police department, balcony level safety presentation. So we may be looking to make some changes, just securing the festival grounds in the future. So we're trying to plan ahead for any changes that we may need to make. And that may be a little bit more of a cost than what we've traditionally been used to. So we're looking to do that. I'm also pleased to say we decided to, with everything said, our commercial vendors, we decided to increase by $100. These are, again, only for commercial vendors. The only other increase we did is for the craft show. We increased the fee for the craft show vendors by $25. We decided to maintain all the nonprofit vendor booths, again, because we know the contributions they make in our community overall. So although there may be additional expenses, we did not want to change any prices for our nonprofit groups. And I believe that is basically an overall summary of the meeting. Any questions on,
Questions on apple harvest?
Bed races? No?
what's that?
Bed races.
Bed races?
We're bringing those back?
You know, we actually tried several years ago and there wasn't interest. We had a couple years where we tried bringing it back and there.
That was
it's-
great.
So much fun growing
I
up.
know, and then it,
Those bed races.
unfortunately.
Okay,
Did try though.
thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item B, sewer. Tony?
Yeah, there's two main issues which are actually linked. The first is the PCB remedial action plan. PCBs are polychlorinated biphenyls for chemical engineers among you. They're widely used. It's a widely used chemical. It's used in all kinds of industrial commercial applications, but it was found to be carcinogenic and extremely harmful to the environment. And in fact, we stopped manufacturing them, I think, in 1978. But when we remediated the sewer plant, just a few years back, there was about an acre worth of soil where these PCBs had leached out from the plant into the soil, which means it can get into the waterways like the Quinnipiac. So we were instructed to take them out. Essentially, anything over 100 parts per million, we have to take out and clean. And if it's less than that, we have to cap it. So we think it will cost $2 to $3 million. We expect to begin work in the summer. The only thing that's holding us up is Connecticut Deep is reviewing everything. But as soon as they finish their review, we'll have the bid documents, we'll go out to bid, and we'll start work in the summer. Now, the issue is the 2 to 3 million. Now, we do have a certain sum of money available in our reserves. Our reserves are currently at 7.147 million. The 2 to 3 million will take us below our minimum reserves, which is essentially 1 year's budget. And if you look at the current proposed budget, that's about 6.1 million. So we're about $1 million or $2 million off. Now, it doesn't. We have a plan to build up the reserves after that to get to the minimum again. But what we talked about to do that was essentially bringing in a very small increase of the sewer rates in order to essentially do this, as well as take into account the fact that our sewer costs have risen year over year. Not very much, but things like inflation. When we redid the sewer plant, there was extra electricity for that, with a whole new building, the phosphorus building. So there was, the costs have gone up as well. So we got a couple of things to deal with. There hasn't been an increase in 10 years. We structured it then that we would have not just money to run the actual departments, but also to put money aside for the massive stuff that we knew we were going to have to do. And most of that, frankly, we've done. The last bit is the PCB, PCB remediation. So we're looking at a small amount. It would be $10 a year for a resident and $18 a year for commercial or industrial customers. So we want it to be so that essentially you wouldn't know it. It's only on the flat rate too. So you can still keep, if you want to put meters and things, to cut your costs that way, obviously you still can. It's just a flat rate increase. It's not bad for 10 years. Anyway, we haven't decided yet. We're looking at it, looking at the financial information, and we'll make a decision to the next meeting. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Tony on sewer? No, hearing none. Okay, we'll move on to item C, Board of Education District-Wide Facilities Committee. That one's me. So, and Alex, maybe Alex, do you want to give the update or shall I? Go for it.
Briefly, the Board of Education District-Wide Facilities Committee met last week, February 20th, on Thursday, and it's been kicking around for many, many, many years of talk about what we should do for our elementary schools. Most of them have been updated in the last 20 years. There's 3 of them, Darrenowski, Flanders, and Kelly, which are all predate the 1960s or predated. So the committee had a more robust discussion, met with some planners, architect folks, and is bringing a recommendation to the Board of Education at their next meeting for the Board of Education to take some formal recommendations and paths forward for the public to look at this coming fall. It was more of a consensus vote, a consensus discussion. The Board of Education, everybody's agreed in the room that the Board of Education is the rightful body. They're the experts to make that decision. There were folks like Paul was there, I was there, Board of Finance, Planning was there, but everybody agreed the Board of Education is the proper body to really make that final recommendation to the town council.
Yeah, and is it okay, I mean, we may as well, it's a public meeting, so there's not, the recommendation was that there was a lot of work that went into the analysis of build to new. The agreement is that Kelly School is the first phase, and by doing Kelly School, it's going to allow other areas that may be affected to progress along. So one of the decisions before the committee was, do you build a new Kelly next to the old Kelly? Or do you renovate to new like we did the middle schools? And so there was some cost analysis on that. There was some other analysis on that, a lot of discussion. The consensus was to have the Board of Education look at a build to new so that there's less disruption to the students, as well as a build out of South End School. At the same time, there's a shell in South End School down on the bottom back of the building that's several thousand square feet. And so those are the 2 recommendations. And then once those are done, it will allow things such as redistricting and things like that to be discussed by the administration. And so more to come on that, because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. you know, I am, one of the things that I impressed upon the committee and that I've asked the Board of Education is that regardless of the decision that's made by the Board of Education, the entire strategy needs to be shown to the public. So what's going to happen at Kelly? What's going to happen at Flanders? What's going to happen at Darrenowski? What's going to happen at South End? Redistricting or no redistricting, and what does that mean to those who are affected and when? And then if that's laid out before a referendum vote, before it comes to the town council, I think that would be the most transparent scenario so that the voters could, in a referendum, if it passes, make a decision based on seeing the entire chain of events. And if that passes, then, you know, there may be some opportunities for the town council to look at future buildings and, you know, what to do with them or what not to do with them. So more to come on that, but I think it's an exciting time. I think that these are the strategic discussions that need to occur at our boards, and, you know, we shouldn't be afraid to address them and put them forward and debate whether, you know, path A, B, or C is the right path. And then, you know, if appropriate, allow the voters to make a decision as to what they want to see in the community. So I'm glad to see they're advancing it and moving it forward so that it could be a little bit more transparent out there as to what the potential movements may be. Any questions on that? I think it's going to be more, there'll be more to come in the next couple months. If a referendum comes up in November, you know, this council needs to take action on it by we're figuring the end of May. So it's going to happen fairly quickly, I'm thinking. And that's got to allow for public hearings and inputs and things like that. So more to come. Okay. Item 7, Town Manager's Report and Communications. The report of Board of Finance, Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, the Board of Finance met February 12th at the regular scheduled meeting. The superintendent and the Board of Education chairwoman presented their proposed budget. The proposed budget that Superintendent Nancy put forward was unanimously voted by the Board of Education and supported. That was brought to the Board of Finance just for a preview and review to them. It was a 6.60 requested increase. Additionally, the state of Connecticut came in and gave a brief presentation regarding the Connecticut 2.0 insurance plan. It's something that's been sent over to the Self-Insurance Committee to review. It's just looking for options to maybe smooth costs going forward, reduce health insurance costs for the town and employees. No real motivation other than just looking for options and always looking to see if we can do things better, cheaper, and more effective for our employees and for our taxpayers. If there's no questions.
Any questions on the Board of Finance?
Item 2, we have the Marion Avenue Bridge replacement. This is a request for this council to schedule a public information session. The DOT is working on a bridge over Marion Avenue. However, part of that CTDOT and federal funding requires that the public have an opportunity to come in here from the engineers who are doing the project, ask questions, and it's almost it's a watered-down public hearing. So I'm going to ask that there's new business there, that somebody make a motion to schedule that at your next meeting.
Alex, one of the questions on that is, in the past, the DOT does these public information sessions remote. So they would be live on a Zoom call or something like that. Do you know if there's a plan to do that?
They're coming in person. So the engineering firm that's been hired by DOT will be here.
Okay.
They've already scheduled it.
And was there a discussion as to whether it should come to the council or to the Public Works Subcommittee for the hearing?
There wasn't.
matter.
We can send it to Public Works first, but it should be at the council level as well.
Okay, so we definitely
Put
want to have
on
it
your
at the
agenda.
council level.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to do it twice.
Okay, so then what we'll do is we will put it on for the March 10th meeting, is that correct? So when we get later on, we'll look for somebody on Old Business B to make a motion for March 10th, 2025.
Unless there's a consensus to call it Del Santo Brook.
No, we've already had that debate. Unanimously was a no. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
A quick update on the building department. I met with Mr. Ricchio, our new building department director, last week. He's advised that all permits that have been applied for in 2025 are under the 30-day statutory deadline. We're more looking at 1 to 2 weeks for the plan review to come through. December 2024 is all about 2 weeks right now, they'll be caught up, and November should be done within the next week. So starting March 1st, we should be 100% in compliance with our plan review and with our inspection scheduling. It's great.
It's amazing.
A lot of
2
good
months,
feedback.
2.5 months. Really good job. The team's doing great.
Yep. A lot of people working hard, appreciate Plainville allowing us to use their inspectors well on Friday, so it's been a big teamwork and making some really good progress.
Thank you.
And then a couple quick updates, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I received a call from the Plainville Town Manager today. He just wanted to thank the town, the Police Commission, the Town Council, the Board of Finance, that Lieutenant John Quiller passed. He was a younger officer in Plainville in January, and the Southington Police Department provided mutual aid and basically provided police coverage for Plainville for 2 days. And he wanted to just express his absolute gratitude. It was a very, very difficult time for Plainville, not just the police department, but the entire government and the citizens. So he just wanted to call and he wanted me to express publicly the town of Plainville's thanks to this body. Also, a quick update on payroll. We've had our new finance director, Chrissy Marino, has been working her tail off getting the paycheck system up and running. It's been a really hard struggle for her, but we're finally seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm happy to report I spoke with the police department last week. Previously, the police department, the chief's administrative assistant would come in at 6 in the morning on the week of payroll and work past lunch just preparing the payroll. So about 6 to 7 hours of her day every single Monday. I'm sorry, not every payroll. Every single Monday was done just in payroll, so almost a day. That's gone down to less than 1 hour a week. And we're seeing that department and department and department. So it's been a lot of work up front. I'll give Mitch back there significant praise. He's running around every different building, getting the IT infrastructure set up, getting the time cards configured. I don't even know how he's doing it. It's above my head. And he's also working on programming stuff from behind the scenes with paychecks. It's a tremendous amount of work, so big thanks to the finance department, big thanks to Mitch for getting up and running. It'll be our 3rd payroll this next week, and we're hoping it's the first one that really starts producing dividends.
Alex, if I can also just say a thanks to all the town employees as well, including yourself, because you disclosed that you even had a bump in the road last pay period. You know, as with any technology upgrade like this, there's going to be some bumps in the road, and hopefully the bumps get smaller and smaller. We've been through 2 pay cycles now.
Pay cycles.
Hopefully the 3rd pay cycle is significantly less bumps in the road, and then hopefully we see them go away. But a shout out to the town employees who are, you know, sometimes they're affected, things are a little bit delayed or a number might not look right. Want to just say thanks to all of them who are patient. It's a huge upgrade. It's bringing us to, you know, where we should be really. And I think that it's also beneficial to them as well. We heard some of the town employees say that, you know, now I can see this stuff. I can actually go on an app and see, you know, or my computer and see what's in my paycheck and where the money is being distributed quite easily. So thank them for their patience and thanks, Mitch, also for supporting the team and all the departments and helping get this up and running while you're doing the other stuff as well.
Okay. That's all I had, unless there's any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions, Tony?
I've got one question. I noticed the budget had an increase in the building permits and fees for next year. Is that anything to do with what happened in the building department? Because we can move stuff through quicker, ergo we'll get more money?
It is, and it's also the cost of construction's going up.
Oh, all right.
So there's just an astronomical increase going up year over year, and the permitted fees are based on
Based on that, yeah.
cost of construction.
Okay, thanks.
And there was a new fee schedule that came out recently as well. So there was some
Couple
small
bumps.
Yep. Any other questions for the town manager? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to the town attorney's report. Item A, positive 824 referral from the Planning and Zoning Commission for the sale of property at 22 Main Street, which is the Bank of America property.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know an awful lot of energy, time, and organization has gone into the preparing 22 Main Street, or the BOA property, for sale or for eventual sale. One of the things that's required before proceeding in that direction toward a sale is a positive 824 referral, or I should say approval through planning and zoning. I'm happy to report, and it's in your packet, and it was unanimously approved. There are no issues as far as that. That's one of the cogs in the wheel, so to speak, that will help us go to the next step in preparing this property for its sale.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the 824 referral from planning and zoning? Please.
Semi-related to that, I know you weren't at the last meeting, but you gave us a legal opinion in connection with the purchase of this property.
Yes.
I don't know how to make, I think an argument was put forth that it's not possible under our charter to spend $1 million unless it goes to referendum.
Aware that.
Can you maybe explain, I mean, I know the distinction, I was able to read the charter and it makes sense, but can you maybe just explain for the public your legal opinion a little bit more and how it is possible to spend $1 million without going to referendum?
Yeah, of course, and I'm aware of one individual questioning the validity of the opinion, and I could start by telling you that certainly the running joke is you could put 10 lawyers in a room and get 10 different opinions. You being a lawyer probably been subject to the same perhaps comical statement. When it comes to this particular issue, I quite frankly and respectfully disagree with Mr. Perry. My legal opinion going back to September of last year was, I think, pretty detailed and pretty specific. Interestingly, this is not a case of first impression, though I thought it was. My understanding now in hindsight, having heard there was some concern about the validity of the opinion, that this very issue was addressed in this building when the town was exploring purchasing versus leasing versus a lease with an option. And the council and the town manager independently reached out to bond counsel and asked as to whether or not their interpretation of the charter was consistent with allowing the money to be utilized without going to referendum. And I am told that bond counsel had the exact same conclusion. Now, interestingly, I didn't know that until after this became an issue. I reached out to bond counsel on 2 occasions. On Friday, he was out of the office but working from home. I'd given him my cell phone in hopes that perhaps if he had a moment, he would call me. I called him again this morning around 11 to just be able to state on the record today that this was not a case of first impression, and it was consistent with, my opinion was consistent with bond counsel's previous opinion. If I were to put it in a nutshell without necessarily going in great depth, there are 2 provisions of the charter, and I'm referring to section 732 of the charter, that essentially, again, using very, very broad terms, painting with a broad brush, permit the town of Southington to spend unallocated money upon meeting certain criteria. In addition to that, there is section 746, in particular section A of that deals with anything above $1 million and going to referendum. And ordinarily, when you do a statutory or charter, regulation, ordinance, any criteria you want to put in there, you want to read these 2 or all of these sections consistent with each other. And every now and then, 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. It's rare, but it happens. In this particular case, one could, and I believe Mr. Perry did take the position that 746A, which is the referendum section, specifically requires a referendum. And I did go back and take a look at his comments post-meeting, and I think that the term he had used on 3 different occasions was the spirit of the charter. I am not trained, tasked, or asked to interpret the spirit of what a charter was. It's to determine what the meaning of the charter is and whether it meets the test, if you will, of what's permitted and what's not permitted. At the end of the day, I am of the opinion, and still am, by the way, and it hasn't swayed in any manner whatsoever, that Section 732 of our Southington Charter clearly and unequivocally allows the town to purchase the property without going to referendum, without having any issues as it relates to the $1 million threshold. If one were to take Section 746, again, I don't mean to keep throwing numbers out there just so the public listening is understanding, and I'm not trying to confuse it. What we have are 2 different sections of a charter that appear to be in contrast. One says you can use this unallocated money if you have it, and the Board of Finance takes certain steps to authorize its use. The other section says, hey, wait a minute, we've got $1 million cap, and if it goes above $1 million, then you've got to go to referendum. The two are in contrast. And quite frankly, if you were to read those together, it would essentially render Section 732, the section that specifically states that you can use the money if it's unallocated, available, and the Board of Finance follows the necessary steps to facilitate the purchase. Reading that in conjunction to 746 would essentially make 732 useless. And I don't think it's an unintended consequences, though I used that term in my original legal opinion. I think it was in addition to, or to be more, to read more broadly. You know, whenever a legislative body, whether it be a town council, a state legislature, or our Congress, when they're drafting legislation, charters, ordinances, the term that's often used is painting. Are you painting with a broad brush or a very narrow brush? And in this particular case, where the issue becomes subject to attack is, are we reading 746 in relation to the remaining sections, in particular 732, broadly or narrowly? And if you read them narrowly, it essentially makes no sense because one contradicts the other. Was that, did I?
Yeah, and I mean, just to add on the spirit of the charter, I mean, I think people have to understand, essentially this was an auction. So we couldn't have made a conditional bid saying we're going to send it to referendum. I mean, if you think about, you know, the people who drafted it, they want a common sense approach. They want to give a municipality flexibility for likely an exact situation like this, because you can't make a conditional bid on a referendum. It would take months, and your bid would be unattractive, and it wouldn't be accepted. So, I mean, I think the spirit, it is that type of common sense is imported into the charter. I agree with your reading 100%. I mean, if you had to go to referendum every single time $1 million was spent, you would have no flexibility to make serious decisions.
And that was part two of what I was going to add on once I explained the logic behind how or why the town was permitted rightfully to utilize those funds. The second component of that, as I started the conversation by saying that I'm not trained, learned, or was I asked to interpret the spirit of the charter, that can be used in a synonymous term. Let's start on a practical matter. If 7, which is, I'm not in any way saying that was a reason for the finding, but if 746, and when I say 746 for the public, I'm referring to that $1 million referendum, the sort of the threshold, anything above that's got to go to referendum. If that were to be utilized, and if I were to conclude that was applicable in the present case, not only would it not be an option to consider purchasing the Bank of America property and accompanying land, because it would have to have a referendum, and it would be at earliest in November, unless it was a special referendum, which is highly unlikely. While that's not a factor or criteria in my forming my opinion, it certainly sort of leads into the whole logic. And whether you want to use the term spirit, want to use logic, or I prefer to use common sense, the drafters of our charter, as revised and amended over the years, I believe had enough foresight to say we need to have the availability to utilize these funds regardless of 746 in certain circumstances. And it should be noted that this is done with some degree of frequency. This is not a one-off. I know that, again, I was unfortunately away out of the country last week, but I did hear about the meeting and I did follow up and watch it, as I always do when I miss any portion of it. And while everyone's entitled to their own opinion about as far as how one were to read certain aspects of it, at the end of the day, I think that the common sense approach to this is exactly what the drafters of our charter intended. One of the individuals that I believe made some comments, I don't know who it was, nor does it matter, was the fire engine or fire trucks. And one of the other council members or public said, well, that's a budgeted item. And that's 100% true. It doesn't change the fact that the town still utilized $1 million without a referendum, whether it was a budget or not. But I can assure the public, and I can more importantly assure everyone on this dais, that the town does and has repeatedly utilized funds such as this without the necessity of going to referendum.
if I can, the charter is very clear. There's two sections of the charter, and they're intended for different reasons. One section of the charter speaks to taking on additional debt service and additional taxpayer money by way of taking on a bond. And so when this council and the Board of Finance would like to purchase something that's more than $1 million, and they do it via a bond, that means that they're going to pay interest on that bond, and it's going to cost more money. And that vehicle, there is a provision in the charter that says more than $1 million, if you do a bond, you go to referendum. It's clear. The second provision says, if you're not going to bond and you're going to use cash reserves, i.e., money that's already been taxed, money that's sitting in your reserves, so you have it, and it's unencumbered, there's a vehicle to do that. There's three mechanisms that are required. Number one, you have to have proof that it's unencumbered. That proof comes from the Treasury and the Finance Director, which was received. Number two, the Board of Finance needs to approve it and refer it to the Town Council, which was done. And number three, the Town Council has to vote via a supermajority, which was done. So those three things were satisfied. It's very clear. The forefathers who wrote the charter are giving the town options for purchases. One is via a bond and one is via unencumbered cash reserves. It's clear.
If I
Okay.
may add just to that real briefly, Mr. Chair, I have been a resident of town for 25 years. I've served on this council as a council member. I've served on and off for about 10 years as the town attorney, legal counsel, legal advisor, 100 different labels, 100 different names, 100 different roles. One of the things that was really bothersome to me is that, well, let me back up. I can say this, and I say this with as much respect as I can possibly to this council. This has been the most transparent and most open council that I have ever either been associated with, been involved with, or watched. Whether the public or the individuals on this dais feel as though certain things aren't being heard, they're not being heard, their voices aren't being addressed, that's politics. And I get that, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, when several months after a purchase is made, the question becomes, well, did they act within their authority, and at least plants a seed of doubt. Politics is cynical to begin with. And public, myself included, I don't like paying taxes. I don't think anybody does. And when an individual starts drawing, and I'm not picking on one person on this council, I'm just saying in general, sows a doubt, a seed of doubt, it can fester and it continue to grow. Every single thing that was done not just from my end, because I had no say in this. This was all of you folks. Was done above board, transparent, and arguably in the absolute best interest of the town of Southington. So if I can only speak to the public and also to the council, that everyone's entitled to their opinion as whether or not my position or my opinion was valid and whether the town should have purchased the property. But what I don't think is warranted, fair, or justified is to start having some doubt as to whether or not there was some deal made that the town wanted this property, so we found a way to get it done. I have no input into what you folks say. I give you an opinion, and I leave it at that. My opinion is sound. I stand by it. I will continue to stand by it. I believe personally that the council made the right decision, but there may be others out there that don't. But at the end of the day, the opinion is correct, and the decision was made. 3 months later, to start questioning it seems disingenuous at best.
Thank you, Mr. Town Attorney. Any other questions for the Town Attorney? Tony?
It's more of a comment, which is that you started off with a joke, Lou, that you get 10 attorneys in a room, and they all give you different opinions. Well, so far, we've had 4 attorneys look at this, to my knowledge. They've all had the same opinion. So your joke is...
Freak of nature.
What's that?
It's a freak of nature.
Well, something's gone wrong there. So your joke is untenable now, so...
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we'll move on to public communications. If anybody's here and would like to speak, up to 5 minutes, member of the public, please come on up and do so. Please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. Good evening, Council. I come before you today with several comments that I'll do my best to tie together. First, I want to commend you for selecting Alex as the town manager. I believe he is truly a good person and more than qualified for the job. He's dealt with me plenty of times, and yeah. That doesn't mean, excuse me, let me also state that I also think he is a true leader. That doesn't mean I won't disagree with him at times. That being said, a reminder, leadership in public service is not just about making decisions for a select few. You're not just leaders for families who have lived here for generations. You're not just leaders for the wealthy in town. You are leaders for everyone, including people that you will never meet. The single parent struggling to raise their kids. The divorced man or woman forced to move back in with their parents after having nowhere else to go. The elderly residents who live in fear of losing their homes to an economy that no longer respects them. The 20-something or even 50-something-year-old battling addiction in silence. They are all your people, whether you accept it or not. Now, I know I've said this before, and I hope this is the last time I ever have to say it. No one should have to live in fear of retaliation for exercising their constitutional rights. The ones engaging in retaliation should be the ones who are afraid of getting arrested. For far too long, I've been harassed in this town for where I live. I get it, I'm provocative, but that doesn't justify such actions. And the one question I can never get out of my mind is why? Why are these people who come to where I live so sure that they can get away with it? If you want to make fun of me for something, I won't get too ridiculous up here, but that's fine. We can have a back and forth, some friendly, tough talk, whatever. But don't come to where I live. Leave me alone. I came here tonight thinking that I was going to give the new IT guy a hard time. But after a long day at work, where I'm always constantly reminded of this, the responsibility to be a good person is always on me. Or, the individual. I could butcher this speech, totally choke up and be humiliated, but all that matters is when I walk out that door, did I do my best to be a good person? None of this means that I don't think nepotism is at play. I do. But I'll wait until my Freedom of Information Act request is completed before I bring any concerns like that here. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody else? Going twice? Okay, thank you. We will move on to, before we move on to old business, Mr. Town Manager, do we need we need to put the 824 on to approve it? We don't have to accept it? It's good? Okay. So we're moving on to old business number 10, item A, action on the report of Board of Finance.
Motion approved.
We have a motion from Mike,
Second.
second from Tony. Any discussion on the Board of Finance? Nope, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item B, scheduling of public information meeting for Marion Avenue Bridge replacement, bridge number 131017 Marion Avenue over unnamed brook. We're looking for a motion to schedule the public information session for our next
I'll make a
meeting.
motion to schedule it for March 10th at 7 PM.
Second.
March 10th, 2025, 7 PM. We have a motion from Chris, second from Mike. Any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Mr. Town Manager, you'll communicate that to the proper parties. Okay, new business, tax refunds.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair, to approve the tax refund as itemized in our town packet.
It's nice to have you back doing that, though.
I'll
I
second.
did it for 2 years, so I know how to do it.
We have a motion and a second on the tax refunds. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Item B, appointments. We're looking for a motion on Fair Rent Commission, 1 member, 4-year term expiring February 2029. The person cannot be a landlord and cannot be a renter.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to nominate Zachary Foti of 250 Budding Ridge Road, Southington. Mr. Foti is just completing his degree, political science, Italian and legal studies as a major, and he should be graduating this May. But in addition, though, he's a member of the Disabilities Commission, where he's performed, and I've been told, excellently, and so I would like to nominate him tonight.
I'll
Okay.
second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for Zach Foti.
Nice young man.
Any discussion? Excellent. Excellent. Looking forward to his contributions, continued contributions. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, that's 7-0, passes.
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn?
Please.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.